And one.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Exhibit A Attorneys, where we interview attorneys and other experts across the country to talk about what it truly takes to be the Exhibit A of a successful attorney. Joining me today is Chris Dreyer, who's way more famous than me. So if you know me, you probably know him. But for anybody who randomly doesn't, he is the CEO and founder of Rankings.io, an SEO agency that helps elite personal injury law firms land serious injury and auto accident cases through Google's organic search results. His company has the distinction of making the Inc. 5000 list not 4 years in a row, but 5 years in a row as of this week. Chris's journey in legal marketing has been a saga, to say the least. He's a world-ranked collectible card game player in his youth, then began his grown-up career with a history education degree and landed a job out of college as a detention room supervisor, which probably is the coolest teaching job you can get at this point. Like it's like the lowest stakes to still also help
Right.
people. However, he used the surplus of free time in that job to develop a side hustle in affiliate marketing, where at his apex, he managed over 100 different affiliate sites simultaneously, allowing him to turn that side gig into a full-time one. When his time in affiliate marketing came to an end, he segued into SEO for attorneys because clearly he wanted to be a glutton for punishment, while also having time to become a top-ranked online poker player. Today, Chris is the CEO and founder of Rankings.io. And again, the five times on the Inc. 5000. In addition to owning and operating Rankings, Chris is a real estate investor and podcast host, as well as a member of the Forbes Agency Council, the Rolling Stone Culture Council, Business Journal's Leadership Trust, Fast Company Executive Board, and Newsweek Expert Forums. His first book, Niching Up, The Narrower the Market, the Bigger the Prize, is slated for release at the end of this year. Chris, awesome, man. What collectible card game?
What an intro. What an intro. I was ranked playing Legend of Five Rings.
Okay.
And I traveled all over the country playing that. I won a couple state championships 2 years back to back. And I also played Magic the Gathering too. So, huge nerd.
I played Magic as a kid. That's the one I was hoping for. Five Rings. I missed that one. And then obviously I'm also a history major. So somewhere along the
Nice.
way, we had similar upbringings. We were also talking about both being Star Wars nerds before we started this. But
Absolutely.
as we have both made the transition into legal marketing, I'm super excited to talk about today's topic. So we're talking about not just SEO tips for PI attorneys, but really SEO insider tips for getting those serious cases, not the soft tissue, not the 1025 crap, but the real serious ones. So I'm super interested to hear what Chris has to say. We'll dive into that deeper in about 15 seconds. But before that, I do want to talk about our last episode because we had an amazing guest on recently. We had Molly McGrath on. So Molly talked to us about quality over quantity, growing your team's skills. So how you get your team to level up their abilities, which then gives you the exponential growth across your firm. So once you're done hearing the awesome wisdom that Chris has to share here, if you're interested in that, dive into that episode. But I do want to get into these SEO insider tips. So talk to me. I want to dive deeper into this part. So you've got the affiliate stuff that ends. Now you're like, all right, let me go into SEO stuff. Why attorneys? Like, why were we the ones that were like, yeah, let me go here?
That's the question everybody wants to know. Why attorneys? Why attorneys? The truth is, when I was doing the affiliate marketing, I was making, let's just put numbers down because I don't mind sharing them. I was making $14,000 to $15,000 a month. And overnight, that first penguin algorithm hit and it just nuked all of my income, all of my rankings from doing really well to making $2,000 a month. And at the time, I wasn't the investor or I wasn't saving. I was just spending, right? Living paycheck to paycheck, nicer apartment, nicer cars, nicer going out to eat, nicer places, all the things, right, that they tell you not to do.
The poor dad from Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? Like
yes,
increase
yes,
income,
the
increase
poor
expenses,
dad,
increase,
yes,
yeah,
absolutely. And I was forced to. I had to get a job because my expenses were so high. So I hustled back in the day. Craigslist was the spot to go. And I fired off a resume I literally typed in SEO and I fired off my resume to any listing that said, just mention the word SEO. And I didn't get hired by one, I got hired by three. Now, I know many of you listening are thinking, what would you do here? Well, I accepted all three. And the reason was because it was a remote job and I had a team of affiliate marketers. So I actually got three incomes and I just delegated, right? So what I didn't understand at the time was I was learning business principles through the side hustle of delegation and processes and things like that. And my core job was at a digital agency, and I rose to be their top account manager. And the majority of the book of business that I managed was attorneys.
Ah,
And I,
gotcha.
so I really related to them, started to learn the industry. And
See,
when
I
I
was
just,
thinking you were like, if I can do detention for herding cats that are middle schoolers, I can do SEO for lawyers, which is the same herding cats that you have the experience with.
It's funny because that is the perfect example, perfect analogy of the detention room management, because it was like herding cats. And oh, geez, that was awful. Anytime someone did something poorly, I was supposed to, send them to the principal, but he would just send them right back. So I had like no authority. It was terrible. Um, anyways, I digress. When I decided I wanted to start my own agency, I wanted to niche because I wanted to reduce my competition, and it has all those benefits of perception, expertise, and focus and all these things. And I wanted an industry that had been around for a long time, that was starving for expertise. So you can niche down and you can become an expert in many different areas, but more and more attorneys are graduating. And I knew that they're just, with so much saturation, they had to have an SEO expert. If I was in some areas of the law, let's just say like trademark or patent law, maybe you're the only couple firms in the city you're in. But in the PI space and in criminal defense or family law, there may be tons of competition, and there's only those top 3 positions in the Google search results in the map pack.
And that's just in the same building, that nice
Right.
one downtown. You've got 15 attorneys doing the same thing in the same floor on the same whatever. So I'm with you on that.
1000%.
And so just to give everybody just put a fine point on this, because literally this is what I posted on LinkedIn today. So we're talking about niching, right? Like you can niche, you've got marketing as an industry. You can niche into SEO. You can niche into SEO for lawyers. You can niche into SEO for lawyers doing PI. You can niche into SEO for lawyers doing PI who want the more serious cases. Like you've really cut down that competition, which gives you a huge advantage and also allows you to, charge more and know more and go deeper with them.
That's exactly what it is. I think the biggest thing that when we talk about niching, it's just focus and expertise. And even back in the day when I was a collectible card game player, they had tons of clans I could play. I only played one and just understood how to dominate that one. And that's what I did with, even in the legal space. There are these little nuances, particular sets of keywords and content that you can create to carve out opportunities. Like you said, everyone wants to rank for car accident lawyer. But what about Lyft? What about Uber? What about rideshare? What about 18-wheeler, truck accidents, motorcycle, pedestrian, rear end collisions? There's tons of similar phrases that for a similar objective of getting those car accident cases.
So from the standpoint of, I mean, look, obviously 5 years in a row, Inc. 5,000, you all have grown obviously a lot of I know there's been a number of law firms on the list as well that are growing. For that growth-minded law firm owner who's not yet financially growing, but is interested in this, like what are some of the things that they can be doing on day one to help some, SEO benefit for serious PI cases?
The first thing that you can do when we're talking about most forms of marketing besides referrals, there are linear equations, meaning the more input you put into them, the more output you can obtain. It's a linear equation, right?
At least hopefully, right?
Hopefully, the more ad spend you do, the more billboards, the more whatever, right? Referrals are different. They're exponential, right? They introduce they introduce you to X amount. That's why referrals, everyone loves them, built-in trust, all these things. So back to your original question, from an SEO point of view, you got to have a good website first, right? You can get a solid website for anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000. You may be able to get it less. You may be able to go and start with something like Justia. Look, they have a good framework for at least holding your content. And then it comes down to your content strategy.
Hold on, before you go into content strategy, can you go a little bit deeper on a quote unquote good website? Because I know there's like so much out there on this, but it's really always somebody trying to then turn around and sell you the website. So from your standpoint, like what's a good website for this purpose?
A good website would be on the WordPress content management system that you own and control the asset. It is your asset that you're building. I would highly recommend avoiding sites like Scorpion and FineLoan that have their FineLaw and other companies that have their own proprietary CMS, because even though they tell you you own the code and the content, if you can't access or use the code in the correct manner, if you want to break away from them, all of your efforts are over with, right? So,
But Chris, Scorpion sends really good chocolate chip cookies every so
right.
often. So
Right. And I have nothing bad to say about Scorpion, because their model from an effort and sacrifice standpoint, if you're an attorney listening and you just don't give a care at all about this, and you just want at least something, and you just want them to take it all, then there you go. Right. They may not rank in the most competitive markets, right? But at least you have the digital marketing covered, right? At least you have a website can be converted on. But if you're really trying to rank in these highly competitive markets and develop an asset, because that's what we're talking about. It's building an asset. Your website is an asset. Every piece of content that you create is another book in the library that a consumer can pull to find you.
I love that.
It's not a show like a TV series where you're checking in to see, the old man or Game of Thrones or whatever. It's a repository. So where it comes into play is your time. Now, everyone has an hourly rate and it continues to increase. But at the beginning, if you're trying to keep your expenses low and you're a solo practitioner early on, focus on creating content that's better than your competitors and write it yourself.
So when you say better, what is better?
Lengthier, covers the topic in more depth, it's more researched, it's better formatted, it's easy to navigate. It answers multiple versions of intent. And what I mean by that is, if you have a phrase that's short, car accidents, we don't know what the intent is of someone that types that in. Do they want to hire an attorney? Are they looking for where car accidents occur? Are they looking? You don't know. So when you have a short query with fewer words, your content needs to be longer, because it will answer multiple versions of intent. It will help consumers with different needs. Now, when your content's lengthier, what are the steps I need to take after a car accident? I think you know the intent. Tell them the steps, right?
Well,
and you can really.
Oops, sorry. I just want to go. So I want to go big picture here for a second for people jumping in this. So when we're talking about social media, Facebook wants you to stay on the feed. They want people to keep scrolling, and then every 2 to 3 things you're going to get an ad. That's how they make money. Google wants you to get on Google, find your answer, and be done, so that you keep coming back to Google. So exactly what Chris is talking about. Really think about being the last page that somebody reads, because that lets Google know you got them the right answer. So they'll come back to Google to get the answer to their next question, whether it's legal related or whether it's, a bar argument or whatever that is. It's a totally different mindset of how they monetize visitors. Absolutely.
1000%. It also accelerates the sales cycle, because they're starting to trust you. They start to learn that you're the option. When they that know, like, trust, when they start to trust you, they see your case results, they understand that you know what you're talking about. It's a much easier hiring situation. The other thing I'll say is, without getting too off topic, is like social media. There's a reason why when you do ads on social media properties, that you get a benefit by driving them and keeping them on the platform they're on. If you try to direct them off, that's where your cost per clicks and things increase, because they want to keep you on platform. So if you're on Facebook and you're trying to drive them to your website, that's going to be more expensive than doing a lead capture or boosting a post on Facebook. It's the nature of the game. They're all competing for attention.
And the flip side of that, though, is if you've got a good SEO strategy paired with good ads, you can actually get cheaper ads, because Google knows that you're doing a good job. So they'll give you some, financial incentive to have a great website, a good page score, etc.
Absolutely. And that's where brand also comes into play in terms of that trust perspective, even from an SEO strategy, where, look, I love those individuals that have billboards and TV. I'm not telling them to say, hey, they're terrible, and ostracizing them and saying that's the wrong way. Have a brand, because if I'm ranking number 2 and a consumer recognizes your brand and you start to capture those clicks, Google may think that, oh, I should serve this number one. Consumers are skipping the first result because they understand the brand. It actually helps from a click-through rate perspective. So I encourage the brand from a trust perspective, brand building. I'm omni-channel guy. Look, all marketing works. It's attention arbitrage. It's how much you want to pay for that attention.
I love that. All right. So we've got a good website that we own that we can put content on. We're doing, longer form content. We're doing better. What other tips do you have in terms of putting together that content strategy for our listener watchers here?
Yeah, you want to focus your content strategy on all levels of the funnel. So you definitely, the first thing you want to do is have your practice area pages built. You want to make your sales pages so that you have the opportunity to convert a consumer. But then you want to think about those investigative, those frequently asked questions, and you want to have content around those. And then you want to get really broad in the awareness stage. It's thought leadership. You're attracting, you're entertaining. That's where you can draw in links and stand out to a wider TAM, a bigger total addressable market to help your overall strategy. So that's on the content. We talked about the website. The third thing is you really need to get your content endorsed. And what I mean by that, the best endorsement's a backlink. It is a link from another website. It is a vote. And the thing that I like to say is Google in 2016 had 3 trillion web pages? That's 2016, guys. How many web pages do they have now? So Google can't even afford the ability to crawl every page on the web. They cannot. They can't afford it. So they have to look for signals to determine which pages should even be crawled in the index. And those signals, one of the top ones is links. If a page has more links, they're going to crawl it more frequently. And that's the problem where I literally in the legal vertical, it makes my ears bleed when I hear content is king. When I hear that out of context, it's like, this is not Field of Dreams. It is not, if you build it, they will come. That does not happen in the legal vertical. You have to be proactive about getting these endorsements and getting links from other websites. People don't just naturally link to a legalese or a practice area page. I mean, let's be real.
Now, along those lines, though, is there, because I've heard this 3 ways. I've heard the complete opposite of what you're saying. I've heard the 100% what you're saying. And then I've heard the you need to hit a threshold of a certain number of links, not that we know the number. And then once you've got enough of that base, then content becomes the differentiating factor.
1000%. There is this certain point that occurs in the very beginning when you have no links. You got to do the manual effort. Got to get listed in all the top directories. You got to do editorial outreach, blogger outreach, digital PR, all the things that you hear the SEO people talking about. Once you have a certain number of pages and content library, you start to earn links naturally. Where do those links occur? A lot of times, statistics pages, calculators, tools. It is software really helps, and you can earn those links, media attention, news results. You can earn those, but a lot of times that's way further in the journey. For example, I'll give you 2 big polarizing sites out there right now. Ben Crump. Does Ben Crump need an SEO expert to do link building? No,
it's MSNBC, and
he's in the news every single week. He's got a Netflix documentary. He doesn't need anyone to manually go build links. Now he needs content. He needs opportunities. He needs to build that library. Absolutely. Right. And then you've got someone like Dolman Law, who we manage. All right. They're the second largest, most visited site in the nation behind Morgan & Morgan. Right. And we all know Morgan & Morgan's budget. It is, 200,000 words of content a month for the last 7 years, 6 years. I mean, he's got a huge library. The amount of link building that he needs compared to, now compared to in the past is significantly less. And not only that, your link profile naturally becomes more organic, and it stands the test of time under any scrutiny. Any type of link building is under Google's eyes, and John Mueller doesn't want any type of link building. They just want digital PR. So it helps you in the future to have a more natural link profile.
I love that. All right, I want to go back. I think this will jump on that, but something you said before, you were talking about how in the awareness stage, going a little bit broader with your stuff. So in terms of having a little bit more uniqueness to it, can you give us some examples?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say anything, a new technology comes out, driverless cars or some type of safety, safety related thing to technology wise. If you have that on your website, a tech blog will have the opportunity to link to an article on your website. If you don't, where's a tech blog going to link to? Are they going to link to your motorcycle statistics page? Maybe if they're trying to improve the technology for reducing motorcycle accidents. So you have to have content that appeals to a broader TAM and not just those individuals searching for car accidents. So it could be pet related and pet safety. It could be food. It could be food related and diet and exercise. You want to have content that broadens to a much larger TAM to get eyeballs and impressions from an awareness perspective.
And that's something that becomes the, I don't know, tertiary ancillary benefit of niching is the more you become, the PI lawyer for pet owners, then you've got that natural transition into that secondary, awareness type thing that fits your brand. Otherwise, it sounds like a lot of that becomes sort of current events, new stuff, new laws going into effect, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. And here's the thing too, is media, we all want links from media. Well, they're going to link to statistics and primarily. So if you rank number one for motorcycle accident statistics, and then the journalist goes to cite and wants some, you stand a better chance of obtaining that link. And that's why we talked about the content strategy. Once you start to rank number one for all these blogs, you even get more links from that method. It's significantly harder to dethrone the number one and number two guys because they already have the content that's ranking number one that's earning the links naturally. Now there's some side steps, right? Why did Neil Patel buy Uber Suggest? Was it to make money from Uber Suggest? No. It was because everyone was linking to Uber Suggest and it made all his content on his blog rank better. It's the same reason why he bought Answer the Public. And it's just a different type of tactic. It's where software gets linked to a lot, statistics gets linked to a lot, and having that content on top of just your bottom of the funnel transactional.
And for anybody who doesn't know Answer the Public, it is probably the coolest website because in essence, you type in the question, you type in your topic and it gives you the most common question search on Google as the who's, the what's, the when's, the where's. And it's really nice when you're, what Chris was talking about, answering those questions, doing the Q&As. If you're not actually getting the questions, you can go on a site like that, type in, personal injury, broken bone, whatever, and then see the top 75, 150 searches.
Yeah, and it's a balancing act on this content strategy. You need to have basically those three types, right? The awareness, super broad. You need to have the middle, those investigative questions. You need to have the bottom of the funnel, those practice area sales pages. And to complement a social media strategy, what do you think they would like to see? A sales page or frequently asked questions. For the majority, most people wouldn't. They would like to see more of that top of the funnel, entertaining kind of stuff that appeals to a broader audience.
Is there a percentage breakdown across those three buckets that a firm owner at the beginning of this should strive for, or is it really just going to be very unique to everybody?
It'll be unique to what stage you're in. For example, if you're in a situation where you need a lot more links and you don't have enough endorsements, then I would really be focusing on top of the funnel. After you got your bottom of the funnel pages made up, if you have a link gap, you need top of the funnel content. If you have a big lead on your competitors and you got a lot of links, make those bottom of the funnel pages and convert as many people as you can. And so it's just, where are you at in your progression from your content marketing strategy, and that'll kind of dictate what you need to create.
So, I know I can chime in from our standpoint, but I'm curious to get your thoughts. Where does video play into this?
Oh, geez, it's huge. Video is so big. There's so many advantages. YouTube's the second largest search engine, but my goodness, when are they going to be number one?
Well, it's still Google,
right? It's still Google,
or still Alphabet or whatever.
And there's just so many advantages. You can read body language. You can, visual types of learning, and it's huge advantages. from a social proof and rapport building standpoint. That's how what information like. I mean, look at TikTok, look at Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts. If you're playing the social game, if you're calling YouTube the social game, that's where you're getting a huge bang for your buck from an organic strategy. It's not quite pay to play in those areas, Instagram Reels, Shorts, and TikTok. But what does every social media platform do? As soon as they get saturation, as soon as they get a big consumer base, organic doesn't do anything and it's pay to play.
But from the tying that back into SEO, like what's the best practice? We transcribe the video, we pull stuff from it, we repurpose it.
There's tons of tactics. I mean, one of the things you could do is incorporate those on your sales pages, keep a consumer engaged on the page longer. You could put those on the attorney bios. You could put it on the homepage. You could have the results or the testimonials page with the video. They're more compelling when you get to hear them and their tonality and their inflection and their motion. I also see there's situations where individuals will make these viral funny videos and they only put them on YouTube. Well, when you do that, YouTube gets all the natural links when people link to them. If you embedded your own, like on a Wistia, and had your own viral video there, all of the media and everyone would have to go there because that's where it's housed. So it can help from a link building strategy. And, I know we're kind of all over the place and I'm not trying to go down rabbit holes, but when Google's looking at which website should rank, it can't tell if the person's emotionally happy that they got their answer, right? The only thing it can look at is the signals and metrics. How long did this user stay? Did they immediately bounce? Did they continue to navigate through the website and look at other pages? And they compare it to other web pages. So if I got a web page on, Tampa car accident lawyer, and one consumer stays for 30 seconds and the other consumer stays for a minute and a half because the other one has a video and it's longer, I know there's a lot of other factors, but what do you think Google may serve up in the future? Probably the one where the consumer stayed longer.
Makes total sense. I mean, again, all those algorithms are designed or intended to be designed to really appreciate that user experience in terms of finding the right answer, finding a good website, finding a good, finding a good company, but Google doesn't know that, but for the way they interact with the website.
Absolutely. It's got to look at all these variables. The other thing about long content is it takes a longer amount of time to read. You got 200 words, boom, you're done. You speed read it, you're gone. You have 10,000 words. I mean, it's going to take a long time to read that.
So I want to transition into kind of the difference between, or I guess how we change this when we're focusing on those more serious accents. But before that, is there anything else broadly that we've skipped so far?
I think we're doing a good job. I think you're hitting the main points for sure.
It's almost like I know enough about this, right? Anyway, all right. So we're talking here about those serious PI accidents, and I know this comes up a ton in how do we avoid the soft tissue? How do we avoid the less serious cases into the more serious ones? So how do we change the approach to really niche into that?
The truth is, it's really challenging to only focus on the serious injuries. That's the truth. Because if you rank for car accident lawyer, at some point there's a bad wreck, right? And you're going to get that devastating case. Now here's a common misconception. When you rank for wrongful death lawyer or brain injury lawyer, those types of phrases, a lot of times it's not the consumer searching for those, it's other attorneys and your peers. Or it's not the direct consumer typing those in. Now the injuries may be the actual consumer, but that's when you're competing against WebMD and all the medical sites. So the truth is there has to be a balance between the really broad that has the search volume where there's the diamond in the rough, and that comes to your intake process. You can have some disqualifiers. You can really make them crawl through class if you want them to hit those higher, injury thresholds. that's one of the things. So it's a balancing with those broad and then the super narrow and getting really granular. But what I would say is the granular support the broad. And what I mean by that is if everyone wants to rank for car accident lawyer, but you may have to do rear end collision, Uber, Lyft, rideshare, and those first because they don't have the competition that, say, car accident lawyer does.
Chris, I can't believe you wouldn't tell me what I want to hear. It can't just be an overnight success. You can't just write 5 articles and rank #1 on this.
I wish.
But see, you say that. I don't think we do want it to be that easy because like this, so much of this SEO stuff, like, look, you're talking about working with this company for 200,000 words of content every month. I don't think they want to rank overnight because then they unrank overnight. Like, I think we really put in so much long-term effort into these things that we should appreciate how much it takes to appreciate how powerful it is once we're in that spot.
Absolutely. And you want that gap. You want to make it can't be an easy transition to go from the second page to the first page. I mean, it would just be a nightmare from a tactical perspective. The other thing is, when it comes to SEO, the one thing that's not talked about, particularly in the legal vertical, is acquisition. And what I mean by that is so many people, when they want to rank for a phrase, the first thing that they do is they type, they go do the keyword research, they create this great piece of content, they get a bunch of links, and they hope and pray, right? They have to let it age in. But there's another significantly faster tactic. Go see who's ranking #1 and buy them. Buy them. And I know, that sounds crazy, but in some situations, maybe you have a med mal firm that just wants med mal cases and they're ranking for some phrase that you care about. Go buy their landing page and do a permanent 301 redirect. Boom, poof, you rank #1. So acquisition's really underserved. We have done this a ton of times. I've done it for myself in my own agency. I had one of my top competitors ranking Ryan Stewart for SEO for lawyers. And I heard him on a blog say, we don't want to work with attorneys. I'm like, holy shit. What did I do? I dropped an email right to him. Hey, I want to buy this. Let's do it. Let's do a 301. Poof. Oh, I rank #1. There are faster methods in it, and it's with acquisition.
I love that. And especially like in that situation where you're not buying their entire company, you're buying this one channel that they no longer want.
Yeah, it's like a micro acquisition.
Yeah.
How do you value it? How do you value it? How do you, just like you do an evaluation, with EBITDA and stuff, if you're doing the full acquisition, well, how do you evaluate the page that you want to buy? Get access to Search Console, see how much traffic and clicks it's getting, how much do those clicks cost if you're going to do it in pay-per-click, and then there's the subjective aspect of it. How good is the content, right? Is it written by an expert? There's value there versus maybe a more generic piece of content. That's all there is to it. And it sounds complicated, but how much money are attorneys spending to rank in the search results? $15,000 a month, $30,000 a month,
or zero. Depends upon the firm.
Right. It depends upon the firm. But if you're in a big market and you're spending $30,000, $40,000 a month and you got a, $500,000 in year one, could you buy the #1 or 2 guy for, I don't know, 1.5? I don't know. Maybe you could buy the whole firm. That's your SEO strategy. But it's just not talked about. Acquisitions don't occur. There are some exceptions. Andrew Finkelstein, who owns, Diller Law, Finkelstein and Partners, Jacoby Myers. There are some exceptions, but for the most part, for whatever reasons, it's just not talked about. But I will tell you this, due to Arizona and the non-lawyer stuff that's going on, it's coming pretty soon.
Yep. Arizona, Utah, I know DC has some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've relied so long on our ivory tower that's prevented us from having the right forward-thinking business savvy, and hopefully we don't get caught under the crash.
Everything, economies of scale and consolidation occurs in every industry. I mean, in everything. You look at I don't want to go down the political landscape, but look at, 2 parties, right? You look at the real estate market and Remax and like who owns the majority of that market. And then you look at dental, the same thing. And the reason is because Google favors those, and they can also, links drive rankings. Well, what if 10 firms partnered up? How many links combined would they have? So consolidation can be a benefit, and kind of down a rabbit hole, but it's coming.
So I love that you talked about the acquisition thing. I have never heard that mentioned in the context you have here. Are there any other maybe it's SEO myths or things that we don't talk about enough from this perspective that we can share with everybody to really help them get the right growth here?
I'll say this, when we're looking at marketing, there's a couple different types of marketing. There's lead generation, there's demand generation. And this is where everyone talks about, 50% of your marketing's working, you don't know which half. Well, 50% is the lead generation side that you can do attribution through, pay-per-click or those type of tactics through landing pages. The other part, building a brand, creating demand, can't. So I think that when you're looking at your overall marketing effectiveness, you need to look at two things. You need to look at how much does it cost to acquire a client in total from all your channels. Add up your marketing and sales. How much does it cost to acquire a client? And then how much is that client worth? Those are numbers you have to know. And then it just makes you look at different channels, in a different perspective. Even pay-per-click, it gets like a really bad rap. Well, if you compare it to other channels, but even if you paid $5,000 to $10,000 for a case, but it's worth significantly more, it's all relative. And
in pay-per-click, you can buy cases tomorrow. SEO, we're talking, months, years, decades.
Yeah, and just because it costs more doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. And the reason is because of the end point, exponential returns, the non-linear equation. Linear equations, more inputs get more outputs, more ad spend, more social, more content. Referrals are non-linear. So even if you break even, but it contributes to more referrals, you should do it. And that's the thing that's not talked about enough, just from a marketing perspective. It's people get in these situations where it's an either or, but it should be an and.
You're like there's like 5 of us that talk about digital marketing, but also referrals. Like, don't just throw those out the window. I love that. All right. So I want to transition a little bit. And obviously I think we'll go into a little bit of a, pitch standpoint. Where's the point where firms should bring in an expert like yourself and your company? Like, is that something on day one if they can afford it, or should they have some sort of foundation to get there?
In most situations, I would tell you it's later in the game. If you're early in the game, do traditional boots on the ground, grassroots type strategies. Utilize your sphere of influence in your network. Like, do those tactics. Steve Fretson has a great book about business development for lawyers.
Business development isn't rocket science.
Yeah. And do those, right? Because just like what you said, those serious injuries, there are some firms that just want those serious injury cases. Well, what are they doing with all the soft tissue? Or what are they doing with their immigration leads or their whatever leads? Like, at some point you need to make revenue. I would say that whenever you're looking at a channel, just make sure you have the right investment to go into it. And when I talk about SEO, even though our agency's month to month and you can cancel at any time, at the front end, I say, look at this as a 12-month investment. You can leave anytime you want. If you don't think we're pulling our weight, leave. But you need to think about this from a long game, because we have to create a lot of content to give us the opportunities and build it up. And I think that's why there's just a lot of bad advice out there, where you hear 6 months, you're going to get results in 6 months. It's not always true, especially if you're in a major market.
I get emails, they'll have me on the first page of Google in 30 days. They don't say for what keywords or search, because I'm pretty sure Jordan Ostroff, Orlando personal injury attorney, I better be on the first page right now.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah. So that's just kind of my spiel. I think that whatever's working, do more of it, and just have the right mindset to go into different endeavors. Like, if you're going into pay-per-click with a low budget, probably not getting enough data, to give it the correct opportunity to succeed. So a lot of times you do need to just have the right investment and go in, ready to play ball.
So then let me flip this a little bit. What lets a lawyer know they should start investigating whether or not that's a good 12-month, investment commitment? Like, is there a type of case they want? Is there a type of strategy they want? Is there a financial part that they're at to go for this? Like, what's the analysis on there and that can help them look at this as a viable option?
That's a good question. I would say that when you're looking at your marketing expenditure, you're looking at anywhere from 10 to 20% of your top line. Whatever that number is, then look, if you're looking at an SEO, if you're in a big major market, you're going to need at least a couple $100,000, right? So does that 10 or 20% equal a couple $100,000? It's kind of relative, right? So at some point you get diminishing returns for the channel that you're in. And when that starts to occur and you want to look for other opportunities, just look at the opportunity and speak to an SEO expert that can give you some benchmarks. If you're in Los Angeles and they're telling you it's $1,000 to $4,000 a month for SEO, I mean, good luck. It's just not going to work, because even if you move from ranking position 99th to 14th, it's just not enough. So I would say once you start to generate a return and you're constantly maximizing that top line percentage, and evaluate the market competition to see if it's the channel you want to pursue, because it does work. Again, all marketing works, but it's kind of, at what phase do you want to attack SEO? If you've maximized your referrals and boots on the ground or TV or radio or whatever it is, and you want to shift, look at the market opportunity and the competition and then make a correct investment into it.
And honestly, it's funny you mentioned before about it's not like a TV show, but I do think we've trained people to want things that are like bingeable. And so having a decent YouTube channel, people can watch you for 100 hours, having a great website, they can click through 100 different pages. Like, there's some really interesting, whether it's shadow effect, whether it's an ancillary benefit, whether it's repurposing it, taking a social media strategy and then hosting the best things in, longer form on the website. There's some really cool ways to make this work without it being a 100% new addition to what you're already doing, that give you this long-term success and also give you an easier time for your clients to learn about you or get to know you or see if they vibe with, your firm mentality.
I couldn't agree more. And the sequence of events for your marketing also can work like a flywheel. So if you start out buying some billboards, what would be a nice addition to that? Probably radio. They're in your car, they hear you on the radio, they look up, see the billboard, you're maximizing these opportunities. Same way, if you're doing SEO and you have some public relations or news, right, that can support your SEO efforts. And with social media, let's say you have a video production studio in your office. There you go. Well, social media really thrives off of video. So you can create these flywheel types of situations that make things a little bit easier and they power themselves.
Totally. I love that. And then, you get into that habit of your ideal client and figure out which of those flywheels make the most sense for them. Obviously,
right.
From a personal injury standpoint, or a car accident standpoint, they're in a car. So the radio stuff, the billboard, like things that you pass. No, I love that. As we get towards the end here, we've got, a little bit less than 10 minutes. What else can we cover? What else can we talk about? I mean, you have dropped a slew of knowledge here.
Geez, the biggest thing that I would say is back to your investing into your marketing, and it's just constantly expanding and looking at it differently from that cost to acquire a client from as a whole, and really evaluating those referrals. The last thing, and I know we briefly touched on this, the book where I'm coming out in October, niching up the narrow market. The narrower the market, the bigger the prize. Is you can do all this marketing, but you need to have a unique selling proposition. You need to be different. Why should someone hire you versus someone else? They have options. So niching is a way. I mean, look at Joe Freed and what he's done with trucking. Look at Papantonio and what he's done in the mass tort space. He's created his own category. Or There's many, many more, right?
I mean, I always tell people, if you want a fat white guy in a suit, you've got 100,000 options. If you want a fat white guy in a Hawaiian shirt, you've got me. So you can simplify this somewhat.
Well, and here's the thing is like, who do people, so the whole trust perspective and who do they like more than themselves? Like how many consumers are wearing suits all the time? Or how many can relate to someone that's more casual dressed? Or someone, maybe that's why some of the sports things relate. Oh, I like sports too. He must be a good person. Or you see these attorneys that advertise with their family because family resonates. I really care about family. He looks like a family person. And so that's another way that you can do it. Can be taglines, memorability. I really am a huge proponent of entertainment. That's why all the Hammers, Adler, Isaacs, why they do so well is because, Jim Adler charging at the semi trucks with a sledgehammer. Like it's memorable. It's entertaining. Or, it's why John Morgan has Size Matters. If you just see a billboard that says, if you've been hurt, call 505, blah, blah, blah. Like who's talking about that? But if you see Size Matters and you got that dad humor going, right, with the sexual innuendos, like that might be talked about. It might be more memorable. So I think there's a lot to it. And I would just say, just try to create something that makes you stand out and be different.
In a way that is genuine and authentic to who you are. Don't be,
absolutely.
If you are more meek, don't become the sledgehammer guy in your area. But
right.
I'm with
absolutely.
you. All right. Cool, man. All right. So let me talk about our next episode. Then we'll do our final nugget of wisdom and we'll wrap up here. Seriously, to everybody who's listening to this, you could re-listen to this episode a couple times and really mine a bunch of wisdom because I have taken a ton of notes, which is not necessarily normal, but a good sign. All right. So next episode we have is going to air on 8/29. We'll have Brooke Lively on, and she's going to talk to us about the 3 levers to pull to create a more profitable firm. And for those of you that don't know Brooke, my favorite story about her is I was at the Maximum Lawyer Conference, and one of the speakers was raving about Brooke, had no idea Brooke was there, and then Brooke walked in, and so all of us had been pre-sold on how amazing she was, and then obviously gave a presentation that's wonderful. So she's going to talk to us from a very financial perspective, the 3 levers to pull to create a more profitable firm on 8/29 at 1:45 in the afternoon Eastern time. But with that, Chris, I'm still, if somebody has been listening for the last 55 minutes and they remember nothing that you said except this, what would be the most important takeaway, your biggest nugget of wisdom to help more lawyers be the exhibit A of a successful attorney?
Businesses that have a disproportionate number of marketing and sales employees thrive more than those that have more operation employees.
I love that. I mean, if you don't have cases, you don't have any legal work to do anyway.
Yep. Best known beats best every time because best may never get in the cases.
I love that. All right. So for people that have heard your wisdom here and want more of it, what's the best way for them to connect? What's the best, what's your podcast info for them to watch?
Yeah, best way to connect with me personally, I'm most active on LinkedIn. And if you want to check out our website, go to rankings.io.
Awesome. Chris, thank you so much for being here with us. To everybody who spent some time listening or watching this, we appreciate you a ton. And we'll see you back on 8/29 at 1:45 for Brooke's episode about creating a more profitable firm.
Jordan, thanks for having me.